Thank you, Doris. Appreciate it. All right. Good morning. Well, that was sure an eye-opener. I learned a lot of new things in the last hour, which is great. Makes you think. Well, hopefully I can bring some of that to the table to you in this topic that we're going to talk about. I do work full-time in estate planning and the transition of farm and ranch operations. You know, I spoke here, I think it was in 2014, 15. That's when this was just an idea. I mean, I was employed by First Dakota National Bank, but a lot of process and things that we developed since then was not there at that time, but it is today. And so, first of all, it's great to be back. It really is. So since then, I've worked with just over 400 operations across the state, Montana, Wyoming, not North Dakota, but Nebraska, Southwest Minnesota, Northwest Iowa. Since coming to the South Dakota Ag Foundation on January 1st, my focus is going to be here in South Dakota. We're getting reeled back, and we've got a great level of support from the governor's office, as well as the lending institutions that understand the challenge that we're going through with generational wealth transfer, that we need to get focused to help farmers and ranchers through this. And yes, there's a financial side to it, but there's a people side to it too. And in the 45 minutes that I have here today, it's really just going to tee up the things that I'm seeing that we got to focus on, but it's not going to be really to dive into the weeds. Okay, so I am a consultant. I am not under contract with any attorneys. I get people ready for the attorneys. When I'm working with farmers and ranchers, if we're on, for example, on estate planning, I'm looking for their confidence in the work that we've done. Are they ready for the attorney? And the hard questions that they need to think through, do they understand the documents? And there's a point where we're ready. Then we'll make a referral to an attorney. I am not a CPA. We do not have CPAs. We work with the CPAs of the operation. We don't sell life insurance or investments. It's a consulting role. That's the role that we play. And so people say, where does it start? I say coffee or water or what. Well, there's some things we drink we probably don't start with, but for the most part, we start by sitting down and we talk. It's very, very important. Because, yeah, the number one competitor that we have is anxiety. I wish there was more consultants out there. And by moving to the foundation, that's what we're looking to do, is add consultants to help farmers and ranchers through the most difficult thing, but also the most important thing that you'll ever do in your life. So today, we're going to talk about estate planning versus transition planning. And from my perspective, in over the 11 years, I'm saying this is a journey that's inspiration versus obligation. And I'll give you a little story, and actually it's a personal story. I farm and ranch as well. We run around 450 cows, registered cows. We have a 1,000 head feedlot. No, a 999 head feedlot, to be correct, right? Now you know I'm living it. Anyway, we bought that place in 1996 by Lake Preston. Well, that place was a horse training, roping facility was on that place. And we'd seen that for years in high school driving to D. Smith, but then all of a sudden it sat empty. I didn't know the story, but I knew who owned it. So one day in 1992, I just drove up the driveway. I didn't know the guy. I just told him who I was, and he said, so what do you want to do with it? Do you have a horse? Do you have horses? I said, yeah, I have a horse. We have a feedlot, and I use our horse to bring cattle out of the feedlot. He said, that's not what I meant. Are you going to rope in there? Are you going to train horses? No. He said, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, well, we have this dream where we're going to build this cow herd, and we're going to have a bull sale, and someday we're going to have a bull sale inside that great big building. He said, come on in, let's sit down. What I didn't know at that point was how many people that came up his driveway wanting to rent that facility to rope or breed horses or whatever. He didn't want that. And he didn't want that because his son had left 10 years before. There was some controversy. He told his son, go get his life back together, get it together and come back. Well, he didn't come back. So he was inspired with his son when he was there. And then because of an event, he became obligated. What do I do with this thing? It just happened this young whippersnapper me come up the driveway that day. And I said, that's our dream. He said, I'll wait for you. So we didn't buy it till 1996, but they kept checking us out. They got to know our family. They kept driving by our operation, because I'm a non-family member, just seeing if we were legit. And come 1996, I said, I think we can do it. He said, let's do it. I'll sell it to you. And we did. And it wasn't a bargain price. It was $800 an acre, of which land at that time was bringing $400 an acre there. But because of the buildings, he had a premium, but we got it put together. But this is what he did next, which told me, looking back, he was really inspired at that point. He said, I will rent the rest of our land to you rent-free to help you guys get going. Think about that. I didn't at that time. I was too proud to accept that. So I said, no, we want to pay cash rent, normal cash rent. So we did. But thinking back, we gave him inspiration just because we had a dream. And it made him look at himself and the rest of his life differently. He passed in 1999. His wife passed in 1998. And I know they found joy through working with us. That's why I say this whole thing is about a journey between obligation and inspiration. And depending on where that's in an operation, I will tell you the culture and what's going on is totally different. And I hope you learn more about that today. So, I'm going to give a little clarity to this stuff. But does it have to be this tough? Damn right. This is tough stuff. Accept it. It is tough. There's no easy route through this. If it was easy, we wouldn't have a problem. Whether it's the size of the wealth we're dealing with, or it's because of the emotional commitment of the family, this is tough stuff. Accept it as tough. I know you know it's tough. I'm just saying that's okay. We need to normalize this and accept that. Very important. All right, here's 6 disciplines I look for when I'm getting into any family operation the first time. And I drive up driveways. I've never met these people before. And I'm always amazed how fast we go from hello to I say vomiting. They are just giving me the information. That tells you where the level of pain is, all right? I think it helps that I live this journey too, or am living this journey as well. So first of all, vision. I'm looking for, just in the conversation, I don't tell them I'm looking for this, but I am. Is there any level of vision in this operation today? Just through the conversation, can I see it? Can I hear them say it? Because if they're inspired, it'll be that they can't wait to tell me. But if not, they don't know what to do. How do you deploy strategy if you don't have a vision? How do you do that? In May of 2024, which is just a little over a year ago, I always knew vision was important, but I was in this family meeting. I had 16 family members coming in. It was into a boardroom in a motel. And after working with them for 8 months, I couldn't see their vision. I didn't know what it was, which told me I don't think they have one. I don't think they know what it is. So the focus of that meeting was really to talk about that word. So just before they came in, it was 1:45. I was just preparing. I wrote the word vision at the top of a flip chart, and I sat back on the table, and I was looking at it, had my arms crossed, just went, okay, how am I going to approach this to make sure we get the most out of this meeting today? And all of a sudden, the door opened, and then a staff member walked in just to check out that little fire. We probably got that over here underneath the coffee pots to make sure it was still burning. He turned around, he looked at my flip chart, and he said, vision. In the Bible it says, without vision, we shall perish. It's in Proverbs. And he walked out. I knew at that moment exactly what I had to say to open that meeting. But I knew in that moment exactly where we need to start with each and every operation, whether it's estate planning or whether it's transition planning, because that'll give the right level of focus. What is the vision? What is the vision? And we'll talk more about vision here in a little bit. So that is a discipline. All right, it's yours to give. It's nobody's to take. My stuff is for me to give. Your stuff is for you to give, for you to give, for you to give, right? Don't let anybody tell you what to do with your stuff. No consultant, no attorney, no accountant. It's yours to give. It's yours to give, but give it. But give it, and give it with information, and we'll talk more about information. I'll tell you what impacts giving more than anything else: the receiving. We've got an operation right now. We have 4 attorneys involved in it. I helped put that partnership together 8.5 years ago. And the people didn't get along all that well, but it was the right thing to do. And Dad says, you know, if we get this thing put together, I believe everybody will come around. And it made sense. The complexities we were dealing with then, it made the sense to put this partnership together. Well, today it's deteriorated to the level that we actually need to unwind it. And during that time, they've created incredible wealth for every member of that partnership. And the parents gave and they gave and they gave to the point where the receiving was so poor by the children, the dad says, I just want to sell the whole damn works, take the money and give it to the community, and let's build a community center. I've had enough. Shame on them for letting it get to those children, for the receiving being so bad. Right? We hear those stories out there. It's the parents to give. It's nobody's to take. It's yours to give. It's nobody's to take. Don't ever forget that. Whoever the asset owner is, it's yours to give. It's yours to give. That'll get you through a lot of trials right there. And when somebody's not receiving well, I'll pull that trump card out every day. Just remember, it's theirs to give. It's not yours to take. Very important. It's called a lack of respect, starts going down the rabbit hole. Remember, it's theirs to give. How you're receiving is impacting their ability to give to you or your brothers and sisters. Very important. Mental focus, interesting. Legacy, if you're inspired by your legacy, you won't plan for the future. You ever run into somebody, all they want to talk about is history and how we got to this point? I mean, I'm proud of what we've done too, but I don't spend a lot of time talking about it. We started with 10 cows and $25,000 in 91. We built our operation what today. It's a great story, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about it. But if you find somebody that all they want to do is talk about how we got to here, they're probably not planning for the future. Vision, if they are inspired and consumed by their vision, they may miss today. I can be very guilty about that. I'm very visionary. I like to get out there. That's why I'm good at helping others. I got to focus on being in the moment today. But this also represents the younger generation. When they come home, they're very inspired to get going, right? They have dreams. They don't know that they may or may not have a vision, but they have dreams, right? And they're excited. They're excited. So put the younger generation right there. Then if you ever run into somebody that really seems to be in survival mode, and I'll give you an example of a mother that says, I don't even own my house yet. And I love my father-in-law, but he won't even tell us what's going to happen. And these are in their late 50s, early 60s. I think she's about 62. How can I lead my family, the younger generation, if I don't even have the information as to what's going to happen? So in that case, she's in survival mode because she's just totally focused on today. Well, I can tell you, you can have all 3 of these things going on in the same operation. And so by sitting down, having coffee over multiple sessions, we begin to figure out what's really going on as to why this operation appears to be on defense. And we'll talk about being on defense versus offense. Because people want to be on offense. Strategy comes so much more clearly. And we're not thinking about the end. We're thinking about how do we build the future. Very important. Like I said, tough stuff. This ain't easy. Takes a lot of work. Perspective, a few things to think about. I'm looking for when I'm in an operation. This is a process over a period of time. So when I'm working with 70, 80, and 90-year-olds, how much time do we have left, guys? We're running out of time. So the more that we can have time become an asset instead of a liability, it's very, very important. But it's never too late to start. I'm not being critical. It's tough stuff. But it's a process over a period of time. Don't look for perfect. You'll only cause imperfection. This is a very imperfect journey. People want to know, well, how did you do yours? Or how did somebody else do theirs? And we can tell those stories, but that may or may not have any application to their farm or to their ranch. There's a story for their individual operation. Perfection comes from fantasy in this world, It's a very imperfect journey. Just go with it and let it evolve. And if we're working it, it will evolve because people want to help their children. They want to extend their legacy. They don't want to hurt it, but let it evolve. Is the family committed? And will they have the courage to do the hard work? And will the parents have the courage to change their vision to a vision of the next generation, whatever that looks like? I'm not saying we have to change, but if that becomes apparent, will we have the courage to do it? Because things are changing. Things are different. Family leadership. This whole thing is about leadership. It's yours to give. It's your family. Don't let anybody else try to lead it for you. It's yours. It's yours. That's what's going to give you peace. Who's in a position of strength? Usually the asset holder, right? But there are plenty of bullies out there too. I'm a farmer rancher too. I can say that. I've seen them. But I am looking. Is somebody overstepping their bounds? Is somebody trying to take it from the parents instead of allowing the parents to take care of their family? Who's in a position of weakness? But always remember, what the parent says becomes an expectation. So whatever we say as parents, let's not try to create some kind of statement that we think, well, it's going to work us through this argument, because you'll be held accountable for it later. Whatever you say becomes an expectation. Very important. So sometimes we got to look back and we got some reconciliation to do of the past because of things we've said in the past. You're the parent. You're the parent. We're the parents. All right. This thing is all about giving. It's all about giving. With vision, we are inspired to give. Without vision, we feel what? Obligated to give because we can't take it with us. So you want to spend the rest of your life being inspired by what you're doing? Or you want to spend the rest of your life wondering what to do? I'm just saying those are choices. At least if you're hearing it, for a lot of people, it gives them peace that now we know what we're missing. Okay, how do we get ourselves so we're inspired to do what we need and we know we have to do? Receiving. If you're on the receiving end, be humble, be kind, be grateful, but most of all, be thankful. Be respectful. All these types of things. Taking, it's yours to give, it's not theirs to take. There's no room for taking in this. There isn't. But it's out there. Okay, a little bit on estate planning. I'm just going to briefly touch this. This is kind of why I do it to get involved. Number one, there's 5 pillars. We'll go through those briefly. Finding peace. And we are going to talk about generational wealth transfer. You're the first one that's seen this slide. I haven't showed this to anybody. And I'm wide open to the challenge. I'm glad this conversation is at the national level because it's there now. They had a hearing on the aging farmer here about 3 weeks ago. And I can forward that link so you can actually hear it. It was good. They don't know what to do with it, but at least we're talking about it. That's a start. That's a start. All right. So 5 pillars of estate planning. Number one, it's very educational up front for me. That whole coffee thing. I've got a little flip chart thing we do at the table. I want to make sure people understand the difference between a will, a living trust, an irrevocable trust, powers of attorney. What are they? People need to have a good understanding so that when attorneys are talking about these, they know what they're talking about. Not waiting for an attorney to tell them which one to use. You need to decide which document to use as far as a will or a revocable living trust or an irrevocable trust. There's nothing wrong with any of them, but what is the purpose? What are we trying to do? Very important. Asset management, whether it's today while we're working together, or what's the assets management going to look like when we pass someday? It's just a conversation that's happening all the time. Income and taxation. Because of the step up in basis, it's all about federal estate taxes. It's not about state estate taxes in South Dakota because we don't have it. It is about that in Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota. But we're going to make sure people are informed. Very important. Insurance. That's all about what? Long-term care. Long-term care. People are worried about long-term care, and rightly so. My dad passed in April, and he spent 1.5 years in a nursing home. I know what those costs are. But he had good planning, had good cash flow. I just hope they pay the people that work there what they should be paid because they gave him great care, absolute great care. But he had planning between some long-term care insurance and the amount of cash flow off cash rent and stuff. It wasn't a problem. Wasn't a problem at all, those bills. They want the bill paid. They don't want your land. They don't want your house. They want their bill paid. So it's a cash flow. So how do we make sure we know we have a plan for that? And there are new tools coming on the market. Yeah, so people. Everybody says the word dynamics is bad. No, it's not. We just have differences, right? There's differences in people. And then they got married, right? Well, sometimes getting married improves our children too. You can laugh, that's okay. I'm not in the camp, let's put the spouse in the closet and they're an outlaw. I'm not in that camp at all. They are part of our family. But people change. Things change people. Yeah, so there's a people side to this too. And again, guys, there's a lot of time spent on these. I'm just briefly going over them today. So as consulting, I'm involved in all this type of stuff. Finding fair. There's two words I really dislike in estate planning. I've been very clear and very public about it. The two words are fair and equal. I don't know what to do with that. Whenever you start talking fair and equal, that takes you to money, it takes you to a balance sheet, it takes you to a data. If it's about that, that's really easy. But I have met with very, very few farmers and ranchers that really want to just talk about money. There's more to it than this, okay? So I believe I try to approach with clients is finding peace, because I think that's what we're looking for. Mom and dad are looking for peace. They'll find peace as they gain confidence in the decision-making of their wealth transfer that enhances the lives of all their children, which supports the life path vision that each child has chosen. Not all of our children are back in the operation, right? That doesn't mean we don't love them. That doesn't mean we don't take care of them. But how we do that can impact them. It can impact the operation. And so I believe if we understand the visions and the life paths that they have chosen, and then while we're living, and certainly while we pass, how were the decisions that we made supportive of what they decided to do? And if you take a look at it that way, you begin to get away from the balance. Ultimately, we're going to come to the balance sheet. But it helps you find fair through that process. Very important. Because at the end of the day, I think we're looking for peace. Peace. Peace through vision. I call it the sweet spot. All right, here you go. Land has a negative return when we purchase it, right? Has it ever cash flowed the day we bought it? Somebody tell me it did? No. Okay. Has a low return once we got it paid for, right? 1% to 2%, depending where we're at, around 1.25 to 1.8% today. Appreciates in value over time, which equity, right? Equity in the balance sheet, which we need equity in agriculture for a lot of different reasons. But unless you sell it, the return on investment is historically low because it takes us back to the 1% to 2%, right? When we get into estate planning, we're trying to reconcile that appreciation of growth between our family members. That's been traditionally. I'm saying we have to find a different way, I shouldn't say way. If we have time on our side, we have a lot more tools to work with to minimize the impact of what's going on with land. We need land, I get it. But we need to recognize what's going on. Yes, because I think this is what it comes down to. How you give your land to your children will either set the operation up for generational opportunity or generational challenge. And remember, I said we have to take care of all of our children. We're right in there, and there lies our homework. How we do that. Anybody want to argue with that? Because that is the challenge. It is. I get it. Off-farm children, if they inherit land, they just won the lottery. In Kingsbury County, Lake Preston, D-Smith, where I live, 160 acres is worth $1.84 million. There are no have-nots in agriculture if you own dirt. Agreed? There are just those that own a lot more. A lot more. Just to recognize for what it is. That's all I'm saying. That's what we have. Back to, this is not easy stuff. It's not easy stuff. So let's talk a little bit about farm transition. The only transitional experience that farmers and ranchers have is a transitional experience that they went through. I'm saying agriculture has never went through this kind of transitional challenge being experienced today, and I will defend that in the next couple slides. We have never went through this, and that's why this thing is not leveling off. It feels like we're actually gaining momentum on the help that's needed out there. Okay, so if you believe that we've been in evolution over 162 years, I'm saying we're in survival mode from 1862 to World War II. So what happened during those years? We had World War I, we had World War II, we had a pandemic, right? I think we had a stock market crash, had dirty 30s. There's a lot of other stuff happening in that time. I think it's a fair assumption to make there was not a lot of transitional conversation going on during that period of time. We were just in survival. My grandparents moved 5 times in the 30s. But everybody was moving back then, from farm to farm to farm. How many of us would have stuck it out? Talk about being inspired to their dreams. Unbelievable. But survival times. I'm calling these the prosperity years, from World War II to 1969. World War II was very, very good to agriculture because we were feeding the world. We literally were feeding the world. Because through estate planning, I like history, so I'm asking people, tell me how this began. I kept hearing about how somebody bought 4 ranches in 1949 or 56 or 5 farms. Through that period of time, it was going on. My grandparents never intended for us to be in business together. They bought my dad a farm, they bought my aunt a farm, they bought my other aunt a house in Brookings, because that was their vision of what they wanted. So during that period of time, if somebody wished to farm, they either give them the home place, or they just bought them a farm or a ranch. That's a common story out there. And that would be my parents' generation. So if that was how their operation was transitioned to them, that's the experience that they had. Okay? That was going on a lot in those years. Google the price of corn in 1947 and 1948. It's not that much different than what it is today. Do it after the speech, you might miss something. It's interesting. Production wasn't there, but the cost. The other thing, coming out of World War II, there was nothing to buy. So they were piling up cash. They had the resources to buy the farms and the ranches. All right, challenging time, 1970s to 2003. In 70s, land values were starting to go up. So people are trying to figure out how do we spend money on our operations to bring that next generation in. Harvester silos are being built back in our country. A lot of things were going on. They were trying to do this transitional experience, but a lot of that money was on variable rates. That was on variable rates, and then the 80s hit. And so we lost a generation. We lost a lot of those operations. They hit in the 80s. Okay? So today, I'm calling it from 2004 to present. Government policy, ethanol, a lot of wealth is being generated in equity back to land. Land values are going up. And so it's difficult today to just go buy your son or your daughter a farm or ranch if this is what they want to do. There are a few that are doing it, but overall, that transitional experience is not applicable on a mass scale today, which brings us back to how do we work together to bring our kids into the operation, to set these operations up for long-term success. History has shown on a mass scale, agriculture's never went through this at this level before. I'll say in general, people don't know what to do. Okay, I believe transition should start in the late 30s and early 40s. And it starts with a lot of thought. If we can have time on our side, then we have time for thought so we can think through all the things which comes later. I may run out of time, but there's a lot of things to think through. Very, very important. So I'll give this little analogy. I did this at the Governor's Egg Summit, and it went pretty well, but I'm actually kind of a football nut. I know you're probably shocked. I was a linebacker at SDSU. I actually moved better back in those days than what I do today. But I like defense, but for this example, we're going to talk about offense. So imagine the offense huddled up in the field. They're huddled up in the field, and they're waiting for the play. They're waiting for the play. And the play doesn't come in, what happens? They throw a flag. Delay game, right? Delay game. Well, finally the coach will get the play in, and the offense will run the play and execute. Well, at the farm, our younger generation's very inspired to come back. Very inspired to come back. But if their parents are still waiting from the older generation for the play, and they're waiting, which the play is information, how can they lead that younger generation at a time when they're inspired to come back to these operations? And I will tell you, either they become obligated to stay there for the inheritance, or they're actually leaving. I believe we are losing a younger generation right now because they don't have the information to plan. And believe me, this younger generation is an information generation. They need it, they want it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It is different, but you know, we need them. Let's work with them. Let's peel these cards away from our chests. And I tell you what, you'll be more inspired if you do it, because now we're supporting a vision that's going to be there when we're gone. Very, very important. We don't have a delay game. We don't get the delay game. Dual while time is still an asset. The older we get, time becomes a liability because there isn't time for thought. A lot of thinking has to go into this. There's only time for action, which usually means inaction or average action. It's a choice. So let's talk about the journey from simple to more complex. If we say each one of these, even though it's 3 generations, it represents a couple, mom and dad, and they transition to another couple, son and his wife, daughter or her husband. We're still, and we do that for 3 generations. We're fairly simple. We don't have a lot of people involved. I'm not saying the business isn't getting more complex. I'm just saying from a family standpoint, we're still fairly simple. And so I'm always looking for the spread. This is when things get more complex. This is where agriculture is right now. Whether it's 2 or whether it's 3 or whether it's 4 kids, that's where agriculture is, right there, right now. You go from 48% to 16%. These aren't my numbers, these came out of Purdue, but I agree with them. Let's keep going here. Now you go to 4 to 6%. Notice I didn't say 16 or 4 to 6% failure or success. What do those numbers mean? I guess you can interpret them however you want. This is how I'm interpreting them. At 16%, when you go to that first spread, 16% of the operations know what they need to do at that phase to work this business together. In other words, do we need a partnership, an entity, all the different pieces that need to be done. And they're finding a level of inspiration to be in business together. I will tell you, at that first spread, we have to find inspiration. We can live through that, being obligated to be in business together at that first spread. But if we don't find inspiration, forget the 4 to 6, we don't have a chance. People have to want to be in business together to go to the cousin level, because now you're working with cousins. And I work with some of them, and I see the difference. And there's a lot of work to be done. Don't let that scare you. At least somebody's making this a known, that's all. If you're interested in that, we can talk about what that looks like. This presentation, I'm hoping, will give you a little bit of confidence as to why things are going on the way they are. Don't let it scare you. Step 1, we look back in the operation. I actually have a transition form I work through. We do talk about the history of the operation. I'm saying we are very nice, conservative, rich people. We are rich in equity, right? Did you know if you have a net worth of $13.4 million, you have a greater net worth than 99% of the people in the U.S.? Did you know that? How many farms and ranches are worth more than $13.4 million today? A lot. The average one to keep farmers farming is right at 14 million. I've worked with operations up to 350 million in net worth. It's a lot. But look at that as an opportunity. Don't look at it as a burden. I'm always amazed originally how many try to talk down their land values. Well, I ain't going to work because we're going to have to do appraisals at settling the estate time anyway. It is what it is. But how we work that, try to find the opportunity in your wealth. We're just very nice people that aren't used to dealing with these kinds of numbers. The haves and the have-mores. There are those that have a lot more, right? Don't spend a lot of time looking over the fence at their stuff. We're going to spend more time talking about how we're going to compete against that. Very important. And with vision, we have a chance to compete against it. The wealth of America is in rural America. When somebody told me that about 3 months ago, that's when I started, okay, what is the net worth? What is the differences? And if we got to transition the numbers that I Google, 140 some trillion dollars by 2048, how much of that's going to be in rural America? We got a lot of wealth to transition right here in rural America. It's called equity. It's called land. It's called dirt. We got a lot of work to do. With vision, it's going to go a lot different. Yeah, so what's the parents' vision? Very important to me. And I want to make sure that people respect that. But will the parents have the courage to change if that vision is becoming obsolete and doesn't fit the vision of the future generations? If you want to help your kids, they will. If we're really stuck, looking back, it becomes a much more difficult journey. Step 2, vision. I've talked enough about that. We're going to find a vision for that operation. And it's very simply this. I just need to know one of these 3 answers. Are we going to keep this farm or ranch unified in the form it is today? I need them to commit and agree on that decision. Are we going to fragment? Maybe we can't do it today, but maybe they see 10 years down the road, they really like to see separate operations. That's fine. I'm okay. We'll find success, but it's going to be relative to the vision they agreed upon. I say it's risky if we don't have collaboration, because back in our world of corn and bean country, even though we have cattle that live in corn and bean country, do we have to now buy extra combines or extra equipment and add inefficiency to the operation because we can't get along? Or can we keep a level of collaboration in place even though we're going to have separate operations? And I will tell you, some of these operations are big enough that actually fragment them is not a weakness. It's actually the right thing to do. But what's important is people got to decide on a vision. So then we deploy strategy to fit their vision. It's simply that. Simply that. So you can get your arms around this. A vision is not mythical. A vision is a decision based on these 3 factors right here. There's no right or wrong decision. That's all. I like to get operations so they're in an offensive nature. The word is driving the business. They're taking their equity and they're driving the future, rather than be in a defensive mode where we don't know where we're going, so we tend to pucker up. My gosh, we can't lose it now, right? I get it. But with the right vision, with things going on, and how offensive or defensive an operation gets will tell me whether or not we get the vision right. Because people say they want this, but boy, we're not acting like that. So we'll start doing a lot of one-offs and everything else, try to figure out where the gaps are. Yeah. How much time we got left here anyway? I guess the doors haven't locked up. Here's some of the things you're going to have to go through to hold these operations together. Individual wealth versus collective wealth. Even though, say, we're going to keep this operation unified, we can never forget about the individual here, guys. Wrapping up, this is an important point. Even though we may have 2 kids in the operation with us, that doesn't mean they're each going to have 2 children. It doesn't mean they're each going to have the same dreams. We can never forget about the individual while we're building collective wealth. Very, very important. Because we're out of time, we'll move through these. Financial system, a big one. That's all the stuff we got to work. In closing, we are gatherers of equity. We are gatherers of equity. Don't forget the haves and the have-mores. It's yours to give, it's nobody's to take. Remember what the Bible says in Proverbs. Without vision, we shall perish. So it's up to you. If you're inspired by your equity, you're going to protect it. If you're inspired by your vision, you'll drive your equity to support the vision. Giving is all about inspiration or obligation. Don't Don't forget those words. Very important, very important. But at the end of the day, I believe, most of all, peace comes from all understanding. Amen. If you understand it, we're in a better position to find peace. Thank you very much.